Hey guys, it's Kevin Smart for Humans, Season 1, Episode 3, and I could not wait for this episode. I know that this doesn't actually premiere till 9 o'clock, but it is online, so I watched it early. Um, and I'll probably be doing that with every episode pretty much with Humans, but obviously, I love this episode. I thought this was probably the best episode of the season. Everything's starting to intertwine. There's so many more clues we found out, and this episode was just, it was a big game changer, I think, in many scenes as well, and there are a lot of things that I'm definitely interested in, and I'm loving this show, really I am. But let's get into this episode. It was amazing, and there's a lot to talk about. So, we start with Hob. He's talking to Fred, and basically Hob asks him to listen and says that he thinks there are 5 of them, including a female. And then he shows a photo of Mia, Anita as Mia, but basically he says that he thinks that they were invested by David and kept a secret. Then when David died, he ran. And he says something happened and they all had to split up, and Fred looks away, and Fiona says he's hiding his thoughts from them, and Hobbs says he won't hurt any of them but does need to find them. So basically he turns him off. He turns Fred off because he's not really sure. He doesn't really think he's going to help him, and basically he then asks Fiona if they found anything in their backpacks, and Fiona says it was all just survival gear like food and water, and wonders why they would need that. So he ponders the implications. So definitely you can figure out that Hobb is definitely trying to investigate why these synths are so much more powerful and so much more advanced than any other synth out there. So that really is what Hobbs' goal is, and I think that definitely is very interesting, so I really like that. So Joe finds Sophie crying, and Mattie says her mom is going to take, that basically Laura's going to take Anita back, and I thought there was an awesome cliffhanger last week when we got to that. I was definitely interested in this. So Toby takes off on his bike angry, because obviously you can tell that he has a crush on Anita and actually wants to be with her, so Laura has Anita in the car. She watches her in the rear view. A car pulls out. Anita sees. She gets out, steps in front of a truck. The truck hits her and saves Toby's life, and that was pretty insane when we saw it. I mean, she just saved Toby's life, and Laura gets out and yells at Toby, and basically now they can't get rid of Anita because she just saved their son. So obviously, Laura's not going to get her wish now. She's not going to be able to get rid of Anita, which I thought that was really good, that we find out a lot more about Anita in this episode, which I really did like, and basically Laura gets out, yells at Toby. Anita lies bent out of shape on the sidewalk, and Max and Leo break into a place and talk about continuing to look for Mia and Fred. Obviously, those are the 2 people they're looking for, and Max says that they need to lie low but look online for a while. However, here's the thing. They're looking for 2 other people when we know that there's 5 of them. So I'm assuming that these 5 are Max, Leo, Mia, Fred, and Niska. Why aren't they looking for Niska? I don't understand that. Like, is Niska, like, do they think that Niska's happy? I mean, they don't really seem concerned about looking for Niska. I'm not really sure why. So, Leo tells Max that they need to be careful and asks what ideas Max has, and he asks why Leo is drinking. So that I thought was kind of interesting. So, P and Karen are working the murder scene at the synth brothel, and basically the madam shows them the photo of Niska. She's basically at a charging point. Now, as we know, Niska got the hell out of there last week in that awesome scene that I absolutely love. She's now basically on the run, and she's at this charging point at the mall, and the other synth asks her why she didn't just share data, and she walks away from her without answering. She grabs up some shopping bags from someone, and I thought that was really interesting. She then heads into a bathroom, puts in contacts, and heads back out. She's in different clothes now, and she's basically just gonna not let people know that she's Niska. She's gonna be someone else, which I think was really interesting. So, Joe, Sophie, and Mattie show up, and Sophie asks Anita if she needs to go to the hospital, and Toby says his mom went mental, and Sophie says Anita is a hero, and Laura says Toby could have died, and Laura asks why Joe didn't stop Toby, and they bicker a bit, and Laura says that Anita doesn't share data and says strange things. Joe loads everyone up into the car and loads, and now, remember, if you ask her that question, she's like, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. She says that. Now, I think that's very interesting that, like, she's programmed that way. Joe then loads up everyone up in the car and loads Anita up front. He leaves Laura with the bike alone, and she and Mattie share a look. Vera then gives George his pills and says he should go swimming this morning. I can't stand Vera, like, seriously. This episode, I know Vera's supposed to be annoying, but I could not stand her in this episode, really. he has an idea, and he says, and I thought this was awesome what George did here, because he says his knee is hurting, and and he's just completely annoyed by her. He's tired of him giving him orders, and he doesn't want to listen to her anymore. I mean, and that's understandable. I mean, think of everything she said to him. It's really fucking annoying. I can understand why he's pissed off. So, he says his knee is hurting, and says they should bring his bed downstairs to make things easier. He shows her a messy room downstairs, and says the window is painted shut. She goes to check it. He walks out, shuts her in, locks the door, and that was pretty genius that he does that. He then goes to check on Odie, and he finds him under the blanket in the shed. He takes Odie to the car, puts him in. Vera hears them getting into the car. She sees George getting into the car, goes to the door, finds it locked, then uses her super strength to break the door. She tells George it's unsafe. He tells Odie to step on it, and I thought that was pretty insane the way we saw that. So they speed away. How Vera knows where they are, I'm not really sure. How she is programmed that way, that definitely is. As I said, I think Vera was programmed very differently than any of the other synths we've seen. She definitely is more abrasive. She's a lot more advanced. Like, she'd advanced in a more maniacal way rather than how Anita's advanced in this more advanced, she's just more advanced. She seems a lot more like she's used for evil. I don't trust her, Vera, at all, and I don't really think that they should trust her, so I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen with that. So at home, Joe checks on the manual. Who's Jeff? I don't know who. Why did I just call him Jeff? I don't know. This is not Big Brother. Joe checks on the manual and asks Anita if she's gonna be all right. She says she thinks she's all right. She says she can repair herself with the repair kit and says he should inspect her epidermis. And he takes her to the garage so Toby can't see. And because obviously they don't want Toby to see what's going on. So she says synthetics can't self-examine and he must report to the insurance company. And he asks how to start, and she says clothes must be removed for this so he can see her wounds and everything. And he says he was afraid of that, and Toby then creeps out to the garage to try and see. I don't think he was just trying to be a perv. I think he was also pretty interested in what was going on with Anita. Like, how could she have saved him and not, like, had any pain or anything bad happen to her? So Joe says he can't do it because obviously he doesn't want to just remove her clothes. So Anita asks if she should remove her own clothing, and he says yes. And Laura walks the bike home. Anita then strips off her clothes. Toby peeks. Joe finds a gash on her shoulder because obviously Toby wants to know, like, what's going on with her. How is she able to survive this? And he finds a gash on her shoulder, and she says she doesn't feel pain. He says she has a wound on her hip too. He kneels and says it's not real. She tells him she's not real. Joe opens the repair kit. She says she'll repair the damage. He hands her the graft kit, and Toby rushes back into the house. Laura shows back up and finds Joe coming out of the garage. Then the press is out, and I thought that was really interesting that we saw that scene. So, the press is out at Pete and Karen's synth hooker crime scene. The chief then shows up and says it looks like they finally have a real case. And she says the madam told them that she bought the synth from some Russians on the black market, and she said the madam told them that the synth complained about the way they treated them, and the chief says it was an illegally modded synth and it was a tragic accident. I am kind of thinking that Vera is one of these synths that is illegal, because obviously there are synths out there. So I definitely feel like Vera is one of those kind of synths that was, that it was modeled illegally. So I'm interested in seeing if that's true, because I think that's really interesting. So Hob was outside. Pete goes outside to confront him, and this is when you start to see that things are going to start to intertwine, and this was really cool. Because basically Pete and Hob meet up, and Pete goes out to confront him, and he tells Pete he's just trying to help, and Pete says people need to know if their dollies are going to start strangling them, and Pete says it's a cover-up, and the press asks for a quote and asks what they're hiding. The chief tosses the guy down the stairs, suspends Pete, and tells Karen that she's working the case alone, because obviously Pete doesn't want Pete involved in this. So Karen's all alone now, and I'm definitely interested in seeing what Pete's going to do. I don't think this is the end of Pete and Karen working together. They're definitely going to work together, and we'll have to see what ends up happening with that. So Max and Leo lurk nearby. Karen tells the chief they should talk to K-Peck, a modder, and basically, I'm assuming a modder is a person that moderates the synths, but Laura tells Joe she's concerned, and Joe called Anita over. He asks if she took, and basically he asks her if she took Sophie out of bed, and she says she didn't, which we know that she did. She said to Laura that she did. And he asks if she can lie. She says no, which she can, obviously. She's lying here, and it doesn't really make sense. So then she talks about the only condition under which she can practice deception, and That I thought was really interesting. So then Laura says about what she said this morning about what about always watching her, because obviously she told her that, and Nia says she would always keep her safe. And Nia asked to return the children. You start to see that, Laura in this episode. I really like what they did with Laura, because Laura and Ania's relationship very much changes in this episode, which I really like. So Laura's freaking out. Joe tells her that if it saved their son's life, then they can trust, they can trust her. So Ania's playing a trivia game with the kids. They tell her no fair. She offers to delay her response time. It's this really good scene. I like seeing her interact with the kids. And Laura asks Toby if he knows why she shouted. And then she asks to play, but they tell her there are not enough controllers. And you can see that Laura still is getting a little bit jealous of Anita, and Anita offers to give hers up, but Sophie shouts no. She wants Anita there, and you can tell that Sophie just has this attachment to Anita, and it's really interesting. And you start to see that Anita wants, she wants Laura involved, but Sophie just is, like, tethered to Anita, which I find very interesting. So Niska meets Leo and Max, and they chastise her for killing the man. And I knew they were going to meet up. I knew something was going to happen there. They know that she killed this man. They tell her they need to stay together. She tells Leo he's keeping them prisoner, not protecting them. He says he's almost one of them, and he says they'll find and destroy her for the killing. And Max asks if she'll kill again, and she says if it's deserved, which obviously you can tell that they're not supposed to kill. And Max says she's a sister, and she says those are human words. He hands her a book, and she takes it and goes. So I thought that was definitely something I was very interested in. So Jill's making bread when her synth Simon comes to help, and he takes her hands and shows her how. Pete then comes in annoyed, gets a beer, and he tells her to get it out of his face, because he doesn't want to see another synth. After him being cut from that case, he doesn't want another synth, and I thought that was definitely something I'm very interested in, seeing what's going to happen with Pete. You can definitely tell. Pete, I'm pretty sure, is going to be against synths now, which is not a good thing, and I kind of feel like he's going to go after synths, and it's not going to end well. So George and Odie are out driving in the country and chatting, and Odie drives around some bikers, and George asks if he remembers driving late one night looking for ice cream. And George said he'd kill for an ice cream right now, and Odie says of course, and he'll get him one. Odie then opens the door and goes to get out, and I was really thinking that Odie was going to, ruin this, because we know that Odie's had malfunctions before, and I was really thinking that because the last time we saw Odie in public, it didn't go well. I thought the same thing was going to happen here, but luckily it doesn't. He opens the door, goes to get out. George tells him to get his foot on the brake. The car runs off the road. They crash into a tree, and Odie's head hits the steering wheel. That was insane, and George gets out, tells him to get out of the car. He tells Odie to go into the woods, and George tells Odie that if they find him, they'll recycle him. He tells him to go and don't let anyone see him. So he tells him to hide, and Odie says, of course, but his speech is malfunctioning. You can tell that he's starting to not be able to speak properly. And unfortunately, George is going to have to get rid of Odie. He doesn't, I know he doesn't want to because that's the only thing he has left of his wife, but he needs to get rid of Odie. Obviously, he's malfunctioning and it's only getting worse. So George moves over to the driver's seat, and Anita does laundry at the house. She finds Laura's secret photo album, and this I thought was definitely something I was very interested in, because basically we see this photo of Laura and this guy, Tom, and I'm thinking that Tom is like an ex-husband because there are 2 children, and she tucks it back away as, now, I'm thinking that he's an ex-husband, but then there's the fact that maybe maybe he's not, and that I think is really interesting. Who is this guy, Tom? I'm very interested. So she tucks it back away as Sophie comes in, asks her to tuck her into bed, and Sophie comes in and asks Laura if Anita can put her to bed tonight, and Joe says it's fine, and basically you can tell that Laura's annoyed. She pours milk, hands it to Anita, and tells her to brush after, and Anita thanks her. She's just tired of Sophie preferring Anita over Laura, and again, it's not really Anita's fault, it's Sophie's fault. Sophie's the one that is connected to Anita and just has this connection to her, you can just tell. So I thought that was definitely something very interesting. So Laura's angry at Joe, who asks what difference it makes, and she says it makes a big difference, then is annoyed that she burned the cakes that she was making. And Niska goes into a bar and opens a book, and a guy approaches her and flirts, and she flirts back with her contacts in, and she looks human. She basically is trying to look like a human, so that way because she knows there are people after her, and that's something I love about Niska, how smart she is. She knows that she's a human, and she knows if she has these contacts in, she can look like a human, which I thought was very well done. So I knew this guy was going to recognize her, though. Like, you know this is not going to turn out well. So Sophie and Anita hang out in her room. Anita says that Laura would like to read to her tonight. Sophie said that she wants Anita, but Anita asks her to please let Laura do it. And Anita goes to tell Laura that Sophie changed her mind, which this is just Anita doing this because she wants Laura to, she feels bad for Laura, and I really like seeing this. And she wants her instead. Laura says nothing but goes to take care of it. Laura reads to her daughter. Mattie listens from her room. It's this really sweet scene where she's reading to Sophie and Mattie remembers the story. I thought that was really sweet, definitely. That to me seemed like that was kind of like Mattie just... We know that Mattie's under a lot of stress right now, so I feel like that was really helping out Mattie. I definitely really enjoyed that. So Sophie asks if Laura's happy now. She says Anita thought she was sad and said she should put her to bed to cheer her up. And Mattie hears all this. Laura goes downstairs, finds Anita making cakes to replace the burned ones. And Laura thanks her for saving Toby's life. And after this, pretty much the relation between Laura and Anita is completely different now. I mean, Laura's not pissed at Anita all the time, and I really like this. And Anita says that she doesn't have to thank her. Laura says she does. She holds out her hand to shake it, and Anita shakes it. And she smiles at Laura, and you can tell that things are definitely going to start to get better between them, which I really like. So Niska then goes home with the guy from the bar who jokes not to wake his wife. She looks at his mail on the counter, and he gets out a bottle of wine, and she says that her name is Candy, and he says that it can't be her real name. I mean, Candy sounds like a stripper name. It really does if you think about it. And he asks what she does for a job, and she says she just left a job in client relations, then asks why they're talking, and he says what people do, and she asks if he wants take her to bed, and he says maybe they can get to know each other first, and says he's interested in getting to know her. And she asks for the restroom, and he points her that way, and she goes to check out his stuff. She spots 2 hair elastics, and she goes back to the kitchen and pulls a knife from the knife block, and she holds it behind her back, and I'm thinking, she's gonna kill this guy. That's what she's gonna do, and, if a guy doesn't want to make a pass at her and do what she wants, she's gonna kill him, which I think is really interesting. So he pulls a stuffed animal out from under the sofa, says he had his daughter over this weekend, and she spots a photo of the child, and she puts down the knife on her chair and walks out of the apartment. So she knows this isn't going to work, and he calls her name, but she's gone, and I'm pretty sure that she's just going to stay on the run. So I'm not really sure what her mission is right now, but we'll have to see. I think Niska definitely is going to be a very interesting character. So Mattie finds Anita in low power mode, unplugs her cord, then plugs her into her computer, and she tells Anita she's weird and wants to know why. And she's basically going to hack into Anita, which I think is really interesting, the way that Mattie can hack into synths. And basically, Anita advises her not to do this, says she can corrupt her. And Anita just starts going, I'm here, help me. Like, she starts acting very scared. And we know who she's talking to. We know that this is to Leo. We know that she's talking to Leo and Max and all of them. So, obviously, when she does that, I'm pretty sure what Mattie did was unlock her Mia personality, because obviously she still has that Mia personality, and then she just goes back to her Anita personality, which I thought was really interesting that we saw that, because obviously she is still Mia, that's who she truly is, but she's been programmed as Anita, so I'm interested in seeing really what's gonna happen there. As I said before, she still has that Mia personality in her, and I'm interested in seeing how, what exactly is going on there. Like, how does she just randomly get it back? That's something I'm definitely wondering. Is she just pretending? I kind of feel like at this point, Mia's just pretending. I really do. I mean, think of how Mia acts, and then think of how Anita acts. It's so different, and I kind of feel like at this point, she's kind of just doing what Niska does. She's pretending, and I think that definitely is very interesting. So she then goes back to being the generic synth. Obviously, I'm thinking she did that because she thought she was going to blow her cover, and asked if there's anything she can help her with, and she obviously scares off Mattie. She's freaked out. She has no idea what's going on. So, that's why you don't hack into synths. That's the thing, Mattie. Don't hack into synths, and that won't happen again. So George is delivered back home to Vera. He says Odie is by himself. Vera asks what's an Odie, and says his GP told him to rest, and he says Odie is by himself. And Laura researches unusual synth behavior. And this scene between Laura and Anita, I really love this scene, I have to say. I thought this was definitely very interesting, because Laura asks Anita to sit down and stop cleaning, and she tells her she needs to understand things that she shouldn't, and she says unusual synth behavior can be caused by illegal modification, then asks if anyone tried to mod her, and she says some mods are to feel pain, and she pokes her hand with a toothpick, and she breaks the toothpick, and then Anita says that's not the ideal place and pokes into her eye and shows that she can't feel any pain. So Laura flinches, but Nia says her eye material will reform around the puncture, and it's this incredible scene where you see she pulls out the toothpick. There's not blood or anything, it completely reforms. It's very interesting. So Laura says take it out. Laura asks why she thinks she has these concerns, and I really love the scene because finally they're coming to understand each other. They're coming to terms, and Laura, I think, and Anita are finally going to establish like that they can trust each other. So Anita says people without a prior synth experience may anthropomorphize like a pet. You know, basically they think of them like a pet, and they're kind of petrified, and they don't really know how to deal with them because that's understandable. It's something they really haven't dealt with before. And Laura asks who Anita could know that she seemed unhappy. How Anita could know that she seemed unhappy. And Laura says synths are supposed to be rubbish at interpreting human emotion. Anita explains that she does not forget, become angry, intoxicated, or feel fear. And she says, on the other hand, she doesn't feel love. And Laura asks if she wishes she could. And then she's like, I'm sorry, Laura, I don't understand the question. That, to me, again, seemed like Anita was trying to cover up the fact about her Mia personality. Because Mia, we know, did feel love. She was loved by Leo and Max. We've seen proof of this. So, obviously, she's trying to cover things up, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that Anita, at this point, is just covering things up. And Anita then out of nowhere just asks who Tom is, and Laura gets this look on her face like, shut the fuck up, I don't want to talk about it. She tells her to shut up, then grabs her, says never say that name again, and it's an insane scene. Obviously, she's hiding something, and we don't know who this Tom guy is. Now I'm thinking that Tom is this guy that maybe she had an affair with, or that something happened with him. I'm not really sure. She has some history with Tom, and I'm interested in seeing who Tom really is. That's definitely something I'm looking forward to. So Nia apologizes and asks if she can make breakfast, and Joe overhears the entire exchange. So he knows there's a guy named Tom, and he definitely is going to call her out on it, which I thought was awesome that we saw that. So Mattie then looks over the code she downloaded. She wants to know what's going on here, because obviously she was freaked out. She uploads it to the web and asks if anyone understands it, and Max then monitoring, and this scene I absolutely love, because Max then monitoring the web and picks up on it. He wakes Leo, who is having a nightmare about being in a car underwater. He tells him he found something. He says it's Mia's root code, and this site makes the IP, but they narrow it down to London, and Leo is excited to know she's nearby. So they're going to reunite with her, and they're going to meet up with Mattie, and I cannot wait for next week's episode. That is by far the best cliffhanger we have had so far. That was awesome. I love that. So obviously they're going to find Mia, and I can't wait to see what's going on there. As I said, at this point, I feel that Mia is just covering herself up and is just pretending to be this synth. I think she was reprogrammed, but she still has that. We saw it when Mattie hacked her that she still has that Mia persona, so I definitely feel like she, at this point, is just covering things up, and I think that definitely is something I'm really looking forward to seeing how, them meeting up with Mia as Anita, and we're going to see what's actually going on with her. It's something I'm definitely looking forward to. Now, who is Tom? Why is Laura so concerned that Anita knows this? I'm pretty sure that Tom is this guy that she doesn't want Anita to know about, but that's something I'm definitely looking forward to. Who's Tom? What connection does he have to Laura? What was their relationship like? Was he an ex-husband? Is she someone she's still with? I'm really not sure. That's something I'm definitely very interested in, and I have to say, I think that definitely is very interesting. And obviously Joe now knows because he heard her, so we'll have to see what happens with that. Let's talk about Niska. What is Niska's real mission here? Like, what is she really doing? I can't really tell what Niska really is trying to do. Obviously, she escaped from that guy, and she was going to kill him, but now she's not, so I don't really know what Niska's trying to do. She's just trying to kill people, humans in general, so they don't go after synths. I'm not really sure. Maybe, I don't really know what Niska's trying to do. We'll have to see what happens with that. That's something I'm definitely interested in. Now, let's talk about Vera, because I think Vera, as we know, there are illegal synths, and I definitely feel like Vera is one of them, so we'll have to see what happens with that. George is going to have to get rid of Odie. I'm sorry, but after what happened with Odie, he's going to have to. I know George doesn't want to, but at this point, he just has to get rid of Odie. He really has no choice but to do that, and I feel really bad for George, but you know what? He has to get rid of him eventually, so I think now's that time where he's going to get rid of Odie. Definitely we'll have to see what happens with that. Sophie and her connection to Anita, I mean, it's really interesting. That's something I'm definitely, looking forward to is why does she have this connection to her? We'll have to see what happens with that whole storyline, I have to say. That's something I'm looking forward to as well. Max and Leo, I'm pretty sure at this point they're just gonna find people. They're gonna find Hob. They're gonna find. They found Mia, and now Niska escaped. So we'll have to see what happens with that and Max and Leo, because obviously they want to get their whole family back together, and that's something I'm definitely looking forward to. I have to say that's something that I think is gonna be very interesting. Now Pete, as we know, Pete was fired from his job. I'm interested in seeing what Pete is gonna do. I definitely feel like Pete is going to be completely against synths now because they fired him from his job. He feels like they caused it, and I feel like he might even go after them and might try to kill them. I kind of see that happening. I mean, just the rage that he's going through. I think Karen definitely, she's going to be on the case, but something's going to happen there, and I'm interested in seeing really what's going to happen with Pete now that he was fired. And then Hob, obviously Hob is trying to figure out how these humans are different, how these synths are different and how they were programmed differently to have emotions. We can obviously tell they have human emotions, but how did they have these human emotions? Not really sure, and I think that's something I'm definitely very interested in. I think that's, very just fascinating. The way the show plays with that is something I really do love. The way the show shows that these people do have that these synths do have human emotions, and they think like humans. Some of them don't, but most of them do, and that's something I'm very interested in. Again, I still feel like Leo was the first of these synths. These 5 synths that we have, I feel are the longest living synths. Like, they are the first 5, and then the other ones just were created, and they were programmed, and I feel like these 5, though, were the first ones created, and maybe, I don't really know. It's something I think is very interesting. I'm interested in seeing really what's going to happen with that whole storyline. But overall, guys, fantastic episode. Loving this show. Best episode of the season by far. So many questions and so many things I'm interested in. And that's something I think is just very well done. Also, who is David? Because obviously, Hob thinks that Fred was made by David. So, who's David? I'm not really sure. We'll have to see what happens with that. Because obviously, he thinks that there's this guy, David, that created Fred, and we don't know who the fuck David is, and I'd like to know who that is because we don't know at this point. So that's something I'm also very interested in, is who is David? That's something I definitely do want to know. And also, what is Mattie's reaction going to be when these guys meet up with her? Because I'm interested in seeing what's really going to happen with that. Obviously, they're going to go find Mia, and they're going to meet up with Mattie, but I can't wait to see what happens with that in the next episode. I think that's going to be awesome. It's something I can't wait for, and I just realized that next week we're going to be halfway through the season because there's only 8 episodes, and we're going to be halfway next week, so I'm definitely interested in seeing what's going to happen. But overall, guys, amazing episode. Absolutely loved it. So much going on in this show that I just love, really. Everything going on, I just love in this show, I have to say. They just, week by week, the episodes are getting better and better. I can't wait for next week's episode. It's going to be amazing. But that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Overall, guys, I thought this was by far the best episode of the season. Absolutely loved it. Let me know what you guys think of all the storylines that are going on. I wanted you guys to know, what do you think happened with Tom? Was he some guy that Laura was married to, or is she having an affair with him? I hope they don't do that. I hope the show doesn't do an affair storyline, because that'd be really dumb. There's a show I'm watching that is focusing on that way too much, The Whispers. They're focusing on that way too much, and I really hope this show doesn't become like that, which I don't think they will, but we'll have to see what happens with that. But that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for a movie review, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.